Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest, Christine Blosdale. Christine is an international speaker, a #1 Amazon best-selling author, radio and podcast expert, motivational business and confidence coach. Christine is globally recognized as an expert in marketing via radio, podcasting, and YouTube, and can be found at christineblosdale.com. All right, Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much. I'm very honored, actually.
And I'd like to start this show off by, this show actually came about through my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. I wrote it right before the pandemic came about.
Wow. Good timing.
And the crystal ball was working. I was like, okay, we need to reboot things. And I couldn't even fathom all that's going on our planet right now. I believe the universe is conspiring for our highest and best good. I'm sticking with that, whatever that is. So I love to start off with asking if you have a time in your business or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Well, this has happened a couple of different times in my life where I'm going full steam ahead. I'm working, I'm doing multiple things. I was at the time when this last issue happened, I was at a radio station, a major radio station in Los Angeles, KPFK, and I am a multi-million-dollar fundraiser, right? So I have a little bit of a gift of being able to know what people want and need and convey that to them. And so I was raising funds for this major station in Los Angeles. And I was doing my podcast coaching business. I had clients all around the world, and I was just going full steam ahead. And on a particular day, an accident happened and I broke my leg in 2 places.
Wow.
And it was something that was quite devastating to me because I was all supposed to be on my way in just a few short weeks to Australia to be with my wife. And so the idea that I could not do those things that I wanted to do, and I'm a multitasker, I'm an overachiever when it comes to doing things, was really shocking to me. And at first I had that kind of poor me, why me type thing. And being a conscious entrepreneur, I was able to turn that around and really be in a space of receiving. And I'm not used to receiving. I'm used to being the giver, right? I'm the one who fixes everything and makes sure everybody's okay. And it really put me into a position where I had to rely on other people. And the great lesson that I learned from that was not only that I needed to receive and experience that, but also those other people who were giving to me and helping me, they needed to experience that as well. And so I was able to kind of wrap my head around that whole tragedy, and come back out also with great insight, as well. These things do happen for a reason. And that was my reason. I think it was this universe saying, you got to slow down, girl.
Yeah, I really believe that in life, sometimes we get a little nudge from, the universe, Mother Nature, whatever. It's like, okay, sweetie, get back in line. And then no, we don't listen. Boom, we get a slap. We don't listen and something else shows up until finally we're like, okay, I think there's something to this. Maybe I should listen. Maybe I should slow down or change courses and direction in life. And when we're on the right path or alignment with who we are and what we believe, then things show up and it's easy and we don't get those nudges and slaps anymore, because that was really a blessing in disguise, I guess. At least that's
Absolutely.
how I see it. Yes. And so, wow. And unfortunately, you had to have the leg broken in 2 places to get.
Oh, the leg broken in 2 places, several surgeries, and then months later, an infection.
Oh my.
It was, you name it, was going on, and it's also because also being rock solid. A lot of it is about being rock solid on your feet, on your legs, and at the time there were so many things in the air. I mean, I was nailing that. That wasn't a problem with my clients and my job, but there was all this other stuff that was just kind of up in the air. And
Mhm.
so also that helped me get really grounded
Yeah.
and to know what I want in my life and what I don't want in my life.
Mm.
And so that's what I encourage anybody that's watching this or listening to this, is that in things in life, and sometimes it's a major breakup with someone, you know, your heart gets broken or your legs get broken,
Yeah.
that there is a purpose for this. And when you're able to just sort of flip the script a little bit, instead of saying, woe is me, this
Mhm.
sucks, uh, flip it a little bit and say, okay, I needed this. And thank you for breaking my leg.
Right, right. There's an empowerment that shows up when we don't blame the
Totally.
situation, person, place, or thing, and we take responsibility for what we can do and can change. That it's like that situation doesn't own us anymore.
Yes,
We're in charge. We own it, and that's when it disappears. Uh,
definitely. Oh, you speak my language, Sheila. You got it.
yeah, that's one of those things. And I know for me, whenever I have something happen in my physical body, I'll go and I'll look up Louise Hay and I'll look up her, like, why is this
Yep.
manifesting? And holy smokes, it's like right on point. And
Yes,
and the awareness of it, just the awareness of this is really what's going on.
exactly.
And then it kind of goes away. So
Yep.
yeah, that's great. And I'd love to hear how you got into the podcasting and radio and all that whole movement. How did that show up in your life?
Well, I got into radio originally in a very strange time. I used to work for this little outfit called America Online. I don't know if you remember it, but it was it.
Mhm.
America Online was everything, and as far as being online, and they used to have communities. They actually used to have real people expert in their field, do columns, and so I had a column called the Daily Fix. Although I wrote through a cartoon character called Beatbox Betty, I didn't write through as Christine. I wrote through this character,
Mhm.
and it was
Mhm.
a very popular entertainment column, kind of a gossipy, Hedda Hopper type thing. And I was interviewing celebrities and doing that whole thing, going to premieres and blah, 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 blah. And then 9/11 happened.
Ah,
And it was like as if something just hit me in the face and said, who cares really who Britney Spears is dating, or who Angelina Jolie is with, or, what some celebrity is wearing? Who really cares in the great scheme of things? And it really made me stop and think. And I was just listening to, shortly after 9/11, I was listening to the radio. I was channel surfing, as you do. And when I was listening, I heard this really unusual radio station. And it wasn't like an NPR or anything like that. It was real people just saying, hey, you know what? We need to take a look at our policies in the Middle East. And I was like, whoa, that's refreshing. What is that?
yeah.
We have policies in the Middle East. I didn't know anything. And so I actually went into the radio station. I just drove there, walked in, said, I just want to thank everybody. Can I tell everybody that I see thank you? And
Mm,
the guy at the front desk was like, okay.
yeah.
And I walked around and I was just saying how grateful I was for everyone that was working. It was a community nonprofit radio station, so there's
Mm,
no commercials. And I just said, thank you. And lo
right.
and behold, somebody says, so what do you do? And I was like,
Mm,
well, I write for AOL, blah, 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 blah. And they said, you know what? You should volunteer.
nice.
And I felt that pull, when, and
Mhm.
I'll something happens, an opportunity, and you get the goosebumps and all that, those recognition. I got goosebumps right now. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got major ones. When you have that moment and you say, my heart says yes, but then the rationality of, this is free labor. I'm not going to volunteer. I just went with it. I just leapt and jumped on it. And in a couple weeks after volunteering there, just for a couple hours, an opening happened. It was one of those weird things.
Yeah.
And so I started my career in radio, and that was 20 years ago. Yeah, and I was at the station for 20 years, and podcasting just became a natural part of it because, as you know, with radio, it's a bit terrestrial. So once you, if you have a great interview, you do the interview, it's out into the airwaves, and it's really pretty much gone. It's like, it's out there and done. And I wanted to have a way where I could talk to people about the things that I was interested in, and no one would edit it. No one would say, oh, you're going a little too off this, you're talking about things that are a little too controversial. So I decided to create my own podcast, Out of the Box with Christine.
Nice.
And that was about 6 years ago. Yeah. And now I coach, now I teach people how to create their own podcast, how to be a good host, and also how to get, of course, how to get booked on podcast shows and radio as well.
Yes, there's a big learning curve for sure with it all. I had a real estate radio show years ago that did very well. And then with all my kids and traveling, I have 6 children. I adopted 3 and 3 of my own. So that's a big family. So it wasn't the season to continue after those few years. But I got back to it and got invited on the show after being a guest on somebody else's show. And it was really interesting. There's a learning curve of how to even schedule your time around doing a podcast or a show. And I have both. And so there's a lot to it, but once you learn it, it gets easier. I started with 2 hours a week. I got 12 now, and I'm spending the same amount of effort and time. Probably.
Yes.
So it's a while.
Well, especially once you see the results, when you do have that really great interview, when you have those moments, and those are those pausable moments when you're with a guest and they say something really powerful, and you take that moment, that pause, like to really let that soak in. Your listeners, or I do vodcasting, so I video. My podcast is in video as well as audio. But when you take that pause and you really feel it, your audience appreciates it because they know that you're not just rushing, the checklist with questions. Right. You're actually having an engaging conversation. And that's what we all really crave right now.
So true. Now, what was it like for you when you started the radio show and you left that hiding behind, or not hiding behind, but you were the character. So you didn't have to be the person that people see with your voice, and you were doing it in writing, and then you go to your voice, and now you're videoing at some point. How is that a shift for you?
Well, it was a big shift because I never, as a kid growing up, I didn't like my last name because my last name was so people mispronounced it, and it was always like the Blas, the Monday morning Blas. My family, even my dad was called Big Blas, and I was just like, oh, I hate that name. But I had to embrace, I really did. I had to embrace my own name when I went from AOL to being on air at the radio station. And even through my whole 20 years of being on air, I rarely really promoted my name or said, hi, this is Christine Blasdale. You're listening to Christine Blasdale, the Christine Blasdale Show. It was always just kind of a throwaway. And it was actually when I started podcasting and creating my website for coaching that I said, you know what, I need to use my name, because a lot of people that were in Los Angeles and New York, they knew my name. They've just haven't really seen me. They've just heard me. And so I just embraced the name and said, my website's going to be ChristineBlasdale.com. There's only one Christine Blasdale because, it's such an unusual name. But I really didn't embrace my name until actually I started doing the podcasting.
Yeah. So there's something about embracing our truth. in all that. That's just really beautiful. And it doesn't matter what field you're going into. If you're listening in, maybe you're looking into a field that you keep being called to do, but you don't want to put your name or show up. But when you do, that's what people are looking for. And that goes for relationships even. Think about it. If you go on a date and you're trying to, get into this relationship with this perfect person and you pretend to be somebody else,
Oh, yeah.
a lie, because that's what you think people want. Well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a very unhappy, unmatched, unaligned relationship because you weren't real. And
Exactly.
they wanted to date that person you pretended to be. And you don't want that person, because who could live with somebody where you have to be fake 24/7? So that's so not going to work out. And that's the same with going for a job interview. That's the same with everything that you do, getting into friend circles, networking, quote unquote. When we go networking or meeting people, when you come in with, this is my business card, I want to make money, they're like, okay, that's nice. But who are, but if you're like, this is who I am and who are you, and you're interested and you're real, people are like, oh, well, that's refreshing. Thank goodness.
Oh,
But yeah.
100%. 100%. And this is the biggest thing that when I'm working with clients, the thing that we tackle right away is they have a need to be perfect. But is it perfect? How did I do? Is it perfect? And the thing is that you don't want to be perfect, because if you are even perceived as perfect, you're not going to connect with your audience. Your audience are imperfect human beings. And so even if you can, if you're able to, if you're in the middle of something like a podcast, and a cat walks across your thing, you got to laugh at it, and you got to just know that everybody is going through the same thing.
Yep.
That's called relatability. And relatability is something that entrepreneurs, people in media really, really need to focus in on. You want to be relatable. Because if you're relatable, people will listen to you. And if you're a writer, they might read your book, they might get your book. Or if you're a coach, they might actually give you a call and say, you know what, I want to work with somebody who's real.
Yeah.
And because look at, social media, people are not posting pictures of them at their worst moments.
Boy, those are the ones they're gonna have to pay double for. I got a lot of those reels, but that is true. It's something I always say, I love my wildly imperfect, beautiful, authentic life, because it's never perfect, but it is what it is. And I'm okay with that. But I'm really honest about it, in the sense that, if somebody asks, I share so much on the show and in the book and everything else, that it's like, well, it's right there. It's outside on the front lawn. If you have any questions, anything you want to gossip about, it's already there. So I'm not worried about that. And I think that it's relieving.
Oh, yeah.
Other people, because they're like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to put on this facade. Like, if I have friends come over and I haven't cleaned the house perfectly because I had to do 14 hours on a project or whatever, I'm going to tell them, well, if you love me, you can come in. And if you don't, then you get to stay out. If you want to clean it, you can go for it.
Well, and you have to think about it too. Like, who are we trying to impress?
Yes.
Right. So that ideal of perfection, and what is perfection? To me, perfection is being imperfect. That's the idea, is that we all have, we all have bad days. We all have moments where we, need a little uplifting. And so when you can connect that with your audience, they also feel that they're not alone.
Yeah.
If imagine going through a world where everybody's life is perfect except for yours. You'd be like, what's wrong with me?
Or what's wrong with them? My youngest son was so cute. He's since passed away. I love him dearly, and we lost him to a heart condition. It was really hard. But when he was little, he was the shortest in his class, and he had the most friends. But the grandparents all worried, oh my gosh, he's so short. And he got the growing spurt, and he wasn't short anymore. And so I asked him when he was older, I said, Michael, tell me, did that ever bother you that, people thought you were short or, was that? And he said, I just thought everybody was oddly tall. That
Oh,
was,
that's beautiful.
yeah. And I was like, yes, that's it. To live, I mean, he just lived in that beautiful space. And that's why he never had a problem with friends, because he didn't listen to that.
Yes.
He just showed up. And
That's
then
powerful. That's
yeah,
really, really powerful. And
yeah.
it's in our comparing ourselves with other people. That's, as entrepreneurs, that's another thing that with the clients that I work with, we try and knock that puppy right out, because comparing yourself to other people is a surefire way to get depressed and have anxiety and to freeze you so that you do not move. You will not start getting creative and expressing yourself or sharing your wisdom or your expertise with people, because you're comparing yourself to someone and you have no idea what that person's life is. Just because their website or their social media looks sparkling,
Right.
right? You have no idea what their life is really like. And I love authenticity. I love real, authentic people. And so that's why I was absolutely honored to be on your show, because I know how real and authentic you are.
Thank you. So now I want to find out, for those listening in, what steps would someone take if they're just starting out, and they want to do a podcast or a show? What do they do? How do they start this process?
Well, it's actually it's relatively simple. There's just a few things that you do absolutely need. I like to teach people how to do things the easy way. Can you get really complicated and have expensive equipment and do a lot of technical stuff? Yeah, but most people don't have, they're either technophobic a little bit, or they don't have the ability, the money, the resources, or the energy to do it. So I teach people how to do it really easy. And the way that I do it is just through showing them how to record through Zoom. If you have a good computer, a decent camera, so you're not looking like a fuzzy, like Vaseline all over it.
Right.
Good camera on your computer, your laptop. I don't shoot through the phone because why? But if you have a decent camera on your phone, a good Wi-Fi signal, so that if you have guests on, you don't have to have guests on. You could do a short podcast or a micro podcast, which is like 5 minutes, and you can do the podcast just yourself. But if you have a guest on, you want to make sure that you have a good Wi-Fi signal. The most important thing is a rock solid microphone.
Yes.
And, you can there's all different kinds of microphones you can get there. The only one that I recommend, and now Shure, at the radio station, we would use these Shure microphones, and they were like $600 or $700.
Right.
Very expensive, but high quality broadcast quality mics. Shure was so brilliant, they made a podcast version of that mic.
Nice.
Yeah. So they basically created the Shure. It's that. There it is.
I have to get one because my mic broke. I'm using my Mac mic.
Oh, it's a Shure MV7, and it is about I think it's about 250, anywhere between 225, 250, and it has a USB connection. So it's not this fancy XLR when you need a mixing board and all that stuff. You literally just plug it into your laptop, and the lights will go on, and you'll know that you're live, right? You've got a great microphone. Those are the basic tools that you need. You don't have to have a subscription to Zoom. You can do it within 40 minutes, I think is the free version. And really, the most important thing is in the prep phase, knowing what kind of show you want to do. The genre. If it's just going to be you, or if it's going to be you and a co-host, I try and guide people away from the co-host thing. Yeah. And you know why, Sheila, right?
Right.
Yeah, because you'll show up, you'll do the work, but relying on another person. I've heard so many podcast breakup stories. They have the, Joe and Jimmy show, and Joe is doing all the work, and Jimmy is, in the back getting high. And Jimmy decides, this is just too much for me. So then Joe is left, and they've built up an audience or they put a lot of time in. So I try and tell people just maybe not do it with a co-host. But other than that, the things that you do after you've recorded your podcast, how to make it easy, how to just do editing once and have both an audio and a video.
Right.
And it's really important to let your listeners and viewers know that if you are going to create a podcast, please make sure you do it in video because video is king, baby. Yes. Video is king. It's awesome to have a podcast, an audio podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but really people are going to be going onto YouTube to find everything under the sun, and you want to be there. So that's why I encourage people to do it in the two formats, audio and video.
Yes. Now I barely started my YouTube channel, believe it or not. And basically I started just putting the shows there, and I didn't categorize them or anything. So I'm learning all these things. What tips do you have for, starting and growing the YouTube channel as a portion of the podcast and radio work?
A lot of it comes in, not just in the show notes, which is, so when you post a video onto YouTube, you have your title of the show, and then you have in the body, kind of like in the body of an email, but it's in the body, a description, a little bit more detailed description. You can put links in there. You can put, of course, you can put a couple hashtags, but the real key is in the back end of YouTube. When you post your show, there's a little place where you can put in keywords.
Okay.
Now, the tip here is that don't just think keywords like you would on Instagram, like podcast, movies, author. Think of phrases. In other words, when you go on YouTube and you're looking for something, usually you put in how to fix a Volkswagen carburetor, how to get better social media stats, how to. So those keyword phrases is what you want to put in the back end of YouTube.
Okay.
That will you'll get more views because that's how people search. They don't just search movies.
Right. Okay. That sounds magical now. So there's a place where you put the hashtags, and then there's a different place for keywords. Yeah.
Well, in the body of it, and when you're posting something in the body of it, you can put a couple hashtags in there. I do that just by habit. But there is another section in there where it says additional or add more. It's a little, it's tricky on YouTube. It's not real obvious. It's not real obvious, right? You can just on YouTube say how to put keyword phrases in. But when you go in there, you have up to 500 letters, I believe 500 spaces.
Yep.
Characters. And most people don't know about it. They don't put them in there. And that's where you really want to. So I did a show recently. My last podcast was about narcissists and how to survive narcissists, right? And so instead of just putting the keyword in that YouTube video as narcissist, I would put in the phrases: how to survive a narcissist, how to survive a narcissistic husband, narcissistic personality disorder, right? So I put as many different phrases that I think people would be searching in on YouTube, and that will help pull up your video a bit more. The other thing, the most important thing to get people to even click on you is a really sharp thumbnail. And a thumbnail, for those that don't know, that is a graphic that basically introduces your video. And that is what they're scrolling on YouTube, and they're going to see an image. That image is what they're going to be moved to click on so that they can actually hear your show and hear your the guests that you have on. That's really key. And there's a whole art to that. I mean, there's a whole art to that. But Canva will be your best friend.
Yes.
I love Canva. Love it.
Yes, definitely. I'm the Canva Pro. I signed up for the Pro now, and it's totally worth it. Very affordable.
Isn't it?
Yes. It does everything. So that
does everything. You could do videos.
Yep.
You can do videos, you can do workbooks, you can do all kinds of stuff, and you can repurpose your content. And this is the most important thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that when they start talking about doing a podcast, I say, don't just think of it as a podcast, think of it as a business builder. In
Yeah.
other words, use your podcast to promote promote your coaching or your business. That's great. But think of that each episode, you're going to
Mm,
repurpose it into an ebook, repurpose it into a course, a module in a course,
mm-hmm.
repurpose that baby,
Yeah.
that bad boy to offer people more content from you because you've already done it.
Yep.
Why not?
Exactly. You're saying exactly what you would write, and usually better because you're not
Yeah.
thinking about it. You're just saying things. That makes sense. Now, how do you transcribe? Do you go to an automatic transcriber where you pay, or do you have the free transcription program that you use?
I've only, you know what, because my schedule is so crazy I have I produce two podcasts, and I have group coaching clients and one-on-one coaching clients. So I
Mhm.
am so busy basically just producing the content. I
Right.
don't do that many transcripts. Every now and then I will, depends on the guest. And I like Descript.
Descript.
Uh, Descript, yeah, I like that because it's relatively easy, and I've found that the mistakes are very rare when it comes to understanding what the words are said, the transcriptions, and
Right.
then you can actually put that on your video as well.
Yeah.
Having a closed captions, or captions basically being on the screen, especially on YouTube, is really good because a lot of people, they'll watch a video without the sound. I know that sounds crazy, but sometimes people are at work or they're in and they're somewhere and they'll watch the video with the sound off.
Mm.
And so if you have that text, the captions, that helps quite a bit. But I like Descript. There's others. There's
Descript.
Otter.
Now, what is that? Is that something? How does Descript work?
Descript,
Descript or? Okay.
Descript, Descript, I
Okay.
believe. And it's just, you could basically go there online. And I believe you have to do have to download it onto your computer. It's a little bit of a large program,
Okay.
but there are so many, let's put it this way, there's so many things that you can do with Descript. I've only scratched the surface with just doing my transcriptions, but
Okay.
it's literally, you put in the show, you upload. I believe you can do you can either do video or you can do the audio file, but it in a couple minutes has transcribed your whole podcast.
Oh, wow. And you're not paying all the time to have somebody. It's really like a one-time purchase or monthly or.
It's, I believe, see, they give you a couple hours to test it out, which is what I like. And if you have a relatively short podcast, you could probably get a lot of shows done before having to pay for it. But I'm right now just using the free version,
Wow.
and I get a special file that YouTube will understand is a transcription file, and
Mhm.
so it matches it to your video. It's beautiful. And
Wow.
then also, though, you can also take that and turn it into a text document or a Word document if you wanted to, and then you can add that as a blog feature, or if you wanted to also create it as a booklet yourself.
Right.
I have one client she's doing her podcast as each episode is a chapter in a book, and she's interviewing amazing women.
Mm.
And so it's a book about these amazing women who've overcome obstacles. And
Wow.
so every single episode is literally a chapter in her book. And she's got all the content right there. You do have to edit, you do have to edit because how we speak when we're
Right.
talking to someone is a little different than how we read, right?
Exactly.
And how we like to read. So, but you've got 95% of it all done.
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Great. So all that content that I have, I have to go and do that for sure.
You've
Yeah.
got many books.
Yeah.
You've got many, many books in you, Sheila.
Yes. Yes. So now, I'd love for you to share what it looks like to be in your program, how people would start.
Well, I have a couple different programs. So I have I love live coaching, and I love doing actually the group coaching. So I have a couple different classes that I teach. If people want more information, they can always email me, or they can contact me at my website. But I have a couple different classes that I teach, small group classes that show people basically step by step what to do. So I have a Christine Blasdale's Podcast Academy, and you can find more information at yourpodcastacademy.com. And with the Podcast Academy, they can either do a home study course. So they're on their own. If you're somebody who's like, I got this, I can do this, you get the course materials, and then you also have a session with me, a one-on-one session with me. So that's when you take advantage of me and say, I'm good on this, I'm good on that, I'm confused at this level, all that stuff. And then I also have live classes, and those are my favorites because it's very interactive. It's 3 weeks, and we get to go through everything step by step. How to record, how to edit. You do need to edit unless you're perfect. And remember, we're not perfect, and we don't want to be perfect.
Right.
But to edit it, to find the theme music, we go over that, the right kind of music to bring in your show, graphics, you name it. And I love that because I love the interactive part of it, because I get to find out how there's so many creative people, so many amazingly talented people that they really need to get their expertise out in the world, or their wisdom, or their wit. So I love that. And I'll tell you, there's an explosion of women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got a few clients in their 70s, and they're at a place in life where they're like, you know what? I want to share my wisdom. I want to help people however I can. And the bulk of my clients are in that age range. I'd say 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Wow.
It's really exciting. Yeah.
That is nice. There's something about this oral tradition and passing on this wisdom and sharing and community. And I think that is so important. It is the best, because when you hear somebody's story, you hear the living history and the experience, and you get to know the people and what really went on. It's not a boring book that misses the facts and leaves everything important out. And so that's huge and so important. And the other thing about podcasting, radio shows, is that you also, even if your field is completely different than what you think, you're like, I want to be a host on a show, that may not be your field, but it can really double your income or more. I have a good friend that does stem cell therapy in California, a couple of them that are good friends, but one doctor, he has his own radio show and a book, and he actually more than doubled his income with that, because he had a different reach, and people will fly in to see him to get this certain, stem cell therapy. So a doctor. So it can work in many different industries. It doesn't have to be what we think.
Oh, you're reaching people all around the world.
Yes.
Wait. That's, sometimes people have a hard time understanding that. If they have a business that's local structured, right? A lot of times they think it's just going to be in that particular area. So you're thinking that you're just going to be talking to people, let's say in Los Angeles, or in Chicago, or no. When you have a podcast, you're reaching out to people all around the world. I have a lot of listeners in the UK, in Australia, and Canada.
Right.
And there's no way I could have reached people in Canada and the UK by any other way other than doing the podcast. So if anybody's getting goosebumps on this, if they're thinking about it, I wholeheartedly want to promote the fact that you can do this. And it's, for the first time in human history, we have technology that you can basically have your own, it's like your own TV network, right? Or your own radio network. Technology is it's made it so easy to reach other people. So jump on it, do it. Just do it.
Definitely. And I think that's like, the radio thing is really great for if you're in a local area. I mean, like this show, obviously through NBC, it goes everywhere, and then it goes to podcast, but all the channels. But just if you're focused on an area, also look into the smaller shows in that area, I think, because that may be the best spent money you have. Now, before we go, what about promotions? Like, I do sponsored ads on my show, and so that pays for everything and then some. And I started that pretty early on. I think I was maybe 3 months into my show, and I started having lower paying sponsors and that. So what do you suggest for that?
Well, there's a few different ways that you can make income from your podcast, right? So one of the great ways is through advertising and sponsorships. And you can reach those people through either start with your friends and your family, people that even on social media, and offer them an incredible opportunity. In other words, you might have something where it doesn't cost a whole lot for them, but they'll commit, right? They'll commit to having a few months as sponsorship. But a lot of times, because when you're first starting out, you don't have those numbers, right? You don't have that large audience that you can say, hey, I'm reaching 25,000 people every single day. So when you're first starting out, you might want to consider having your own little sponsorship ads. So if you are a coach or consultant, don't make your whole podcast show about your business, because it's an infomercial and people hate that.
Yeah.
You hate it watching those. I don't like watching those either. So you have your show, your program, you're talking to your guests, and then you can do a small ad about your business, about your coaching services, and insert it either in the very beginning or in the middle of your show or at the end of your show. Chances are our dropout rate, people will listen for a while, and then attention span is short. Right. So you might want to get it in right away. So that's one way that you can promote your business. But I also really like the idea of creating webinars and masterminds and things like that. So if you're an expert in your field, create a webinar and invite your listeners to join you. You don't need to charge them to access this webinar. So if you're a coach, consultant, expert in your field, say, I'm on this day, we're doing this incredible 3-day webinar or multiple hour webinar, and I'm going to show you how to XYZ. I'm going to show you how to increase your social media hits. I'm going to show you how to double your money in crypto, whatever. Allow people to come for free. You'll get a lot of people that will sign up for that, and they want to meet you. And then in that session or in that webinar, then you could talk about your higher ticket offers, the things that you want to offer people. So if it's a class or if it's a one-on-one type session, then you can book them. People will rarely just buy from you just because you're selling something. Right. They need to get to know you. They need to be able to trust you. And by offering that free webinar or that time with you, then they get an opportunity to know, okay, you know what, I trust Christine, or I trust Sheila, and I would be willing to invest in them. So that's a couple different ways. There's quite a few different things that you can do. But
just a recorded webinar or a live webinar, or have you seen the difference between the two?
I like to do the live because I'd like to be very personalized. So I want to find out what they do. Yes. And as they're telling me what it is that they do, I'll have all kinds of different ideas. So I like that interactive capacity. And then that way people can also feel your energy and they know what kind of a person you are. That's the fun part for me.
Yes. And that's true, because the clients, the audience, they tell you what they want. What do they want more of? What do they need? How can you serve them? And years ago, I had a gift store, and then I ended up with 5. And when I started, it was one way and one look. And a year in, it was completely what the people wanted in that demographic. And, there was an older demographic. So we played Frank Sinatra and Enya. And, it was a completely different, it was them. I was 23 years old, so I was definitely not Frank Sinatra and Enya, but that's where they were, and the things that they wanted to buy, I didn't want to buy. I mean, I didn't know anything about these. I didn't even know these things exist, this type of art, this, everything. And so it was a big learning curve, and it saves a lot of money when you can connect with your audience and hear the input.
That's very important what you just said, because a lot of times people will say, this is what I want. And you won't be in business for too long if you're just going with what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to know what your listeners, what your potential clients want. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just being able, just like what you did at such a young age, knowing how to do that says a lot about you being very much aware of what your audience or what your customers want, and giving it to them.
Yeah, and it worked. It was such a beautiful thing. So that's something that it saved me a lot of money. What didn't sell, I said, okay, we'll sell it at the swap meet, whatever, just get rid of it and get in what worked. And it was just listening. Sometimes the best people that walked into the store, you would think, oh my gosh, they never buy anything. They come in to talk. And then holiday comes and they would literally hand a list with a couple hundred people on it. Or, oh, I happen to, run this country club and I want you to get all the members gifts. Here's the list. And that's how that happened. So it was building the trust.
Yes.
Before the sales.
Yes.
And it was just easy. It just happened. So
that's 100%.
Yeah.
That's 100%. People, yeah. And especially right now, with everything, the economy kind of going on that roller coaster, what, people are holding on to their money a little bit tighter. So you definitely need to be open to the fact that you may not make that sale today.
Mm-hmm.
You may not land that client today, but also your energy and how you speak to them and how you follow up with them says a lot about you. And I find that that's when you leave that open and you say, you know what, when you're ready, or if you need to, reach out to me, you can. And those are the best relationships. And sometimes those are the clients that will be with you for the longest,
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Well, we are coming to the end of our talking time, Christine. So thank you again for being a guest on the show. Could you one more time share where people can connect with you if they want to get started on the podcasting?
Yes. So the best way to contact me is just to go to ChristineBlosdale.com. That's Christine with a CH, RISTINE. And the last name is spelled Blosdale, BLOSDALE.com, ChristineBlosdale.com. They can go there. And if they're specifically interested in the Podcast Academy, just go to yourpodcastacademy.com. And there's details on the home study course and also my live classes, which I love. I love teaching people. Yeah.
All right. Thank you again for being a guest on the show, Christine.
Thank you, Sheila. You're wonderful.
You're welcome. And for those tuning in, we'll be back after these messages. All right. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mack Show right here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. And I have a special thank you shout out to my friends at Rico and the Man podcast. These days, everyone and their cat has a podcast about the entertainment industry. Am I right? But few shows have as much fun doing it as Rico and the Man with Rob Traegler and Peter Martino. New Jersey meets California in this bi-coastal hilarious show where two old college buddies take shots at all things entertainment. Rico and the Man is a laugh-out-loud look at Hollywood's past, present, and troubling future, with special guests, trivia, listener feedback, and comedy bits. This no-holds-barred podcast is the perfect distraction from your everyday troubles. With new episodes each week, Rob and Peter invite you to laugh along as they praise, pummel, and pick apart show business. Rico and the Man with Rob Traegler and Peter Martino is available everywhere you listen to podcasts. All right, thank you again, Rico and the Man podcast, for sponsoring NBC's Sheila Mack Show. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today I have a couple of announcements. First, I would like to hear from you. That's right. I would love to hear from you. To be honest, I want to know what your breakthrough is, what your reboot is. How are you reinventing and rebooting your life? What shows would you like to hear more of? What information do you need to help you get back on track this year? And to do that, the best way to connect with me is actually through my new YouTube channel, and that is Sheila Mack Show on YouTube. And there you can see past recordings, and you can also see other information and shares that I have. And I would love for you to share in the comments there what you're needing more of and what you're rebooting this year and how we can help you get back on track. Necessitated. You need a guide to show you how we get through a situation like this, to give you resources and to help you get out of the emotional pea soup fog of dealing with a crisis and the resulting fallout. I've been there, and I'm here to help you. Out of the fog. If you weren't emotionally bound up in your situation, you would have more clarity. You would be able to see your best options for dealing with whatever comes up. If the version of yourself who has already walked through this rock bottom and come out the other end could go back in time and give you, the you right now, some advice, what would she say? Would she tell you to slow down, to stop rushing, that you don't have to have all the answers today? Would the future you recommend not making any major decisions without reviewing them first, particularly while you're still in the fog? Would she tell you that normal is going to look different for a while, but that you will feel normal again? In case we haven't invented time travel by the time you read this book, I'm here to tell you all of the above. I developed the Boots formula to help you learn to make choices, have a life shift, and make great things happen based on your individual values and best life vision. A change is going to happen, and it's worth it. There's a stage where it feels like everyone in your life is picking at you. Life itself may seem like it's trying its best to stop you from doing whatever you want to do. All you hear is, that's a stupid idea, and that's never going to work, and who do you think you are? One of the hardest things for people to do is to realign and possibly walk away from anything and anyone that conflicts with their value systems. But you are going to discover that power within yourself. Through the activities and examples in this book, you will discover your true north and will be able to easily do what is needed to move forward with your life. Anything that hurts you, that doesn't resonate for you, that fights against what you want and believe in, you are going to give it the boot. Once you have turned your rock bottom moment into a positive, beautiful life shift, you can live your life on your terms. Your life will probably look different, but you get to design it this time. You are taking your life back, and you are in charge, not anybody else. Sooner than you can imagine, you'll be in the career of your dreams or the relationship you always wanted. Because you are going to learn to develop healthy boundaries. Because you are going to do things differently along the way from here to there. You will begin to attract the people, the job, the place to live, all of the opportunities that align with who you are, your essence, your truth, not anybody else's or even society's expectations of the way you're supposed to be. Once you have accepted that you are in charge of living your life and you begin to embody living your truth, people are going to see you. They're going to be inspired by you. Then you're going to hear, hey,
Can you show me how you did that? I want to do it too. When you assess your peer group and up-level according to your life purpose and vision, and once you have created a life shift for yourself, whatever that looks like, your life is not just full, it's fulfilled. Not only do you get more and better sleep, you wake up feeling rested and happy. You know that you're doing what you need to do. Yes, sometimes your heart will call you to leave certain friends or family members in order to find a more aligned peer group. From what I've seen, however, the ones who leave always return to lead their family and friends to success. Because your friends are more in alignment with your beliefs and value system, they support you while also pushing you toward your personal best. Life still involves work, but as a whole, it feels far more effortless. But you don't have to wait for the right person, right job, or right investment opportunity to show up. You can start living now so that every moment as you go forward through the process of recovering from rock bottom and redesigning your life is one more step to being the best version of you, the one who came.
All right, if you are looking to reinvent life on your terms, if you are grieving, experiencing financial turmoil, career shifts, relationship problems, parenting, elder care, victims of abuse, breaking free from an addiction, or seeking an overall business and lifestyle redesign, then you may need a reboot. It is not fits all, just like a pair of boots or a bra. So the formula is designed to help you through any situation. Grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible as well as on Amazon and Kindle and at www.sheilamac.com.